Welcome to Breakthrough SaaS Growth with the Jasons, the podcast where we cut through the noise and share strategies that actually drive customer-led growth. Each week, we bring you straight-talking conversations on adoption, retention, expansion, and everything in between. Let's get started. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Breakthrough SaaS Growth with the Jasons, with myself, Jason Noble, here in a very sunny London today, and my partner in crime, Mr. Whitehead. Say hello, Jason.
Hello, Jason.
Today we're going to tackle something that I think I'm not wrong in saying that most SaaS, if not all technology companies, still get wrong. I say most, not all. And even though they say they care about revenue alignment, not sales alignment, there's still some challenges around that. And the topic is the good old Sales Kickoff, the SKO. And tagged on to that, we're going to talk about the President's Clubs a little bit and how that fits into it. And for years, it's been the big moment, target, strategy, celebration, high energy, big production. But if revenue is really a team sport, as we know it is, why is it still framed as the Sales Kickoff? Our guest today is someone who everybody knows. I have no doubt at all that everyone who listens knows this. She spent the last 14, 15 years in everything customer success, everything SaaS. She's built and led customer success teams at startups, scale-ups. She's boosted retention, driven expansion, built operations from the ground up. And she's done it with a no-fluff, customer-first approach, which is really awesome to see. She's known for practical playbooks that don't gather dust, templates that get used, and those honest, real conversations about what works and what doesn't work. You'll have seen her at events, speaking, running workshops, and challenging that standard way of thinking. Kristi, welcome back to the show. We're super excited to have you with us.
Thank you, Jason. And Jason, I'm thrilled to be back. I was honored. I always feel like it's a good sign if I get invited back to a podcast.
But I think what kind of caught my attention. I love talking to you. Our chat last year was phenomenal. I think you'd just done the New York Marathon as well, so that was just mind blowing. But what prompted it was that email that you sent out about RKOs and SKOs. And it just, Jason and I have talked about it before, and it just we need to talk about this because not enough people don't. And I know lots of businesses are going through that change, that transition. As I said to you guys at the beginning, my other half's just got back really excited from an RKO her company did, but not everyone's doing it. What I'd ask Kristi, take us. I'm not going to ask you to do an intro because everyone knows you, but we'll kind of come back to that at the end as well. But take us back to that first sales kickoff that you attended as a CS leader, and what did it feel like walking into something where everyone talked about revenue, but CS weren't part of it and it wasn't part of the narrative? What did it feel like?
So going back, this is probably my second company I'd ever worked at. So coming off of a stint where I was at my first SaaS company for 6 years, where Sales Kickoff, President's Club, all those things were very much just for the sales team, right? Like we didn't even you couldn't even like look in the direction of those things. So I had left that company, went to a new company, and the first week I was starting was their kickoff. And so it was like the first or second week of January, everyone's flying to Spain. And they had brought the customer success team along for the ride with the revenue team. So I'm getting there. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm telling everyone, I'm like, customer success is invited to kickoff. This is amazing. Like there's going to be so much alignment. And I'm pumped, right? So like day one, and again, I don't know anybody because I'm new to this company. I know like my hiring manager and the HR woman. And I get there, and like the first kickoff, like the company-wide kickoff where the CEO like gets things started, it was exciting. And like, you think you're going to be part of like this massive conversation for the day, for the week. And right after that, customer success leaves this huge room where everyone is. And like the 20 customer success people that were there get migrated off to another room that is like itty bitty little room. And we just had our own conversations for the next 2 or 3 days. And in my head, I was thinking, wow, you guys had an opportunity to actually drive real alignment here across your business, across your revenue teams. And instead, you made the intentional decision to further the silo in a moment where you physically have these international teams together. And it blew my mind. And I sat there just like, kind of frustrated. Like I was so torn, right? Because I had this emotion of like, this is cool, we're here, but then also the like, we're here, but we're not here.
Yeah.
This was crazy. So I was super disappointed because we did the customer success stuff, but we didn't talk about revenue. We didn't talk about the commercial motions. We weren't being enabled as the other teams were. We weren't part of the awards. So they also had awards that were happening for the other teams. This team wasn't getting awards. They got awards in this little room, but they weren't acknowledged on the big stage with everybody else. I'm like, why are we doing this? It almost felt worse than not being included.
It's almost like you say, it makes the silo even worse. You've been invited, but hey, we're going to throw all of you in this one room on your own.
Usually you feel the silo. This time I saw it. I was like, this is crazy.
What do you think? I mean, it's a life-changing experience, something like that, isn't it? It really does. But what do you think is outdated about the traditional sales kickoff? What's fundamentally broken about that model as to how it works today and how it's historically worked?
Well, I think it's the first thing is, to me, is just the education enablement. Let's just start there. You want all of these teams to be very well versed in your product, the product positioning, go to market, the competitive landscape, how you're positioning your solutions, understanding pricing, negotiation, different strategies there. How could you enable one team that is effectively running one commercial motion, but not enable the other teams who are also responsible for commercial motions, and in many cases also have a quota or a target and have responsibility and accountability towards revenue outcomes? So I start with the enablement one because I think that's a big part of what happens in traditional SKOs is these teams are getting all of the new stuff that's coming out for the year, right? Here's how we're going to market. Here's the new product roadmap. Here is how we're going to price and package things. Yeah. How could you actually ask your customer success teams to do the same things effectively, offer one half of the business all of the resources to go and do that successfully, and then tell the other team, good luck?
It's a bit ludicrous. You know, I do find as well too, sometimes when I've worked with executive teams from different groups, that sometimes like they're either on autopilot or they have blind spots. And I imagine the CEO or head of sales didn't even occur to them that this is what was happening and that they shouldn't bring in the other teams. But I also wonder, if you're a head of CS, do many of them know that they should be asking for this to happen? And do they have that sales and revenue orientation to say, we need to be in this room and we need to make this shit happen? I'm really curious where you think where it falls down.
There was probably, Jason, like this, like, again, the idea that I felt going into this was like, yay, we finally made it to the event. Right. And so like being invited felt like the win, and being invited and being included were obviously two very different things.
Yeah.
That's a nice distinction. I like that. Yeah.
And so that would be the first thing I say. Now, if I may, can I go back to like another point here on like where the next miss, in my opinion, is? You want there to be alignment. You want these teams working well together. But again, you're not facilitating relationships by putting these people in different rooms and separating them and widening the silos. In fact, what you're signaling to these teams is we are not the same.
Yeah.
So
we're separate.
The cultural divide that you're creating, even visually, to everyone who's involved here, is we are all the same, right? In this, marketing was in the big room. Sales was in the big room. The product leaders were in the big room. You know who was in the little room?
Cool kids.
Just CS. And so like you had CS and like, okay, CS ops and customer marketing were also with us, but you just widened that gap by signaling to every single individual contributor in your business, we are not the same. Yet you want to tell them, you have to work together. You have to work together. You have to work together. To me, it's like, again, this is like, do as I say, not as I do. Why are we breaking the groups out and then telling them, but actually want you all to work together?
That
you don't even want us to sit together.
The example you give is almost like someone's got an idea as to what the right way to do it is, but doesn't know how to execute on it. And then that might not be an uncommon problem. You know, this is a lot more. And I think you've said it. I was going to ask for you, is it is it a rebrand? It's not. It's a real shift in how we work. So it's not just changing the first letter.
Don't
There's a
just
lot
change
more
the
to it.
name. No, it's so much more than that, right? Like it's
But-
the intentional design of it.
It is. And what would you,
Yep.
for any CEOs, founders, even CROs that are listening, what's the first structural change they need to look at to turn an SKO into that RKO? Because it's not, we can't just switch it, rebrand, next week it's called this. What changes internally do they need to make?
They need to change the objective of the event. Why are we doing this? What is the business objective? Because you have to have a business objective because you have a CFO. And your CFO ain't signing a check to send everyone to some fancy hotel, resort, wherever it is that you're going, if there isn't a clear, direct connection to business growth. So as far as I'm concerned, if your objective is in line with the fact that, okay, we've got our goal here is to drive alignment to execute against these business outcomes to drive more revenue for the business. Okay, to me, that's clear. Who touches the revenue? Who impacts these outcomes? Great. You could start there. I think that there is intentional misalignment, and I say it's intentional because these things don't happen by accident.
Yep.
Right.
Intentionally, you're saying that the objective here is that we are only going to enable, celebrate, reward, and educate the sales team, because in their minds, that is the revenue team. So I don't even think that organizations who still have this problem with this event, I don't think that they're really still recognizing the customer success or the post-initial sales function in its entirety as a revenue department. So they want us to be accountable for this, but they're not enabling us to be responsible for it.
That's a big shift, isn't it? And it
I
is.
would
It's
think
that
so.
they're not enabling to. But so what do they need to do? Why aren't they enabling us to do it? What's the missing thing there? And what in the organizations where you've seen it work, what do they do that enables that part?
Oh gosh. I mean, think about it just this way. Even if we just break it down, if you ask any sales professional who's been in a sales career, we'll say minimum of 5 years, they have probably had some formal training, right? Challenger, Sandler, MedPick, right? Like they've gone through some kind of formal sales training and enablement. They have a philosophical approach to sales. If you asked anybody in the post-initial sales world, what formal training have you had in sales? They may say, I've attended a webinar. I may have attended, I've got certified through success coaching. And again, this is not a dig at them. I love that customer success goes through that. Those are not sales enablement programs. That is not being fully educated and enabled on how to sell effectively, how to position your product, how to navigate negotiation, what to say when someone says this or that, right? Like sales teams actually are educated on how to do that. What is the rebuttal? What do you say next when this person says that? There's like full logic trees designed for them so they succeed.
Yeah.
We are almost taught that if we are doing our customer success job, that these commercial outcomes should almost just happen.
Yeah.
Which philosophically, I don't disagree that you have to succeed in order to earn the right to get your customers to stay and grow with you. You have to be successful at something in order to earn that right. So philosophically, I'm okay with that. How we execute that, though, I'm not, because there's still a tactical motion that's required to get those things across the finish line. How do you have those conversations, right? Again, going back to negotiation, objection handling. And then everyone wants to get mad when CS is like, yeah, we'll just give them everything and bundle it together just to get the renewal across the finish line, because they don't know what they don't know about these motions.
I think something I've seen before, and this is an organization some years back, is and CS had no commercial responsibility, and at the time no one owned renewals, and we had what I'd call a renewals tidal wave coming in, all these short 1-year contracts that we'd sold some well, some not, and so I owned it. But one of the first things I did was exactly this. So not formal training, because I needed something quicker, was get the sales team to come and talk to us about negotiations. How do you handle challenging conversations? So I think there are some real quick wins you can get from it. I think the other challenge we've got is you still hear a lot of people in customer success I'm not sales. I don't want to do sales.
Right.
I'm not commercial. And that's a real problem. That is a real, because if you've got that in your back of your mind, all of this, anything about sales, you're almost like, "Ugh, I don't need to do it. Someone else is doing it." To your point, other things just happen, but they don't. And anything we do for customers, it's all about driving value. And there is a commercial element in that value. Absolutely. So we've got to understand it. It's fundamental. It really is. And it's just
Okay. Can we spend a minute here, guys?
Yeah,
Am I
go for
allowed
it.
to dig into this? Because you just
Absolutely.
opened up
Yeah.
Pandora's box here of conversations. All right. I do spend a lot of time with that same question on my mind. And I almost say like on my heart too, right? Because like why are we rejecting the idea that we should be commercially driven in the roles that we're in? And I think it comes down to fear. And let me rephrase. I don't think in 90% of the conversations I have with these professionals, it's fear driven. When I've unpacked it, right, and I've gotten past the like, well, I don't want to do this and that, like they make a lot of excuses. But if you peel back all of those things, it's fear. They don't want to get anything wrong. They don't want to do anything that's going to prevent this customer from actually renewing. They don't want to do anything that's going to cause the business any risk. They're so risk adverse, but it's driven by fear. They don't know how to handle these situations. They don't know what to do. They don't know the conversations to have. They are not even clear on what is in their control from like, even just say a commercial standpoint. Like, I don't know, like sales teams know, okay, you can drop down to 20%. Anything below that has a range, right? There's so many rules of the road when it comes to sales that they know, okay, I got to go back to my boss and get this checked on, right? Like that is a line that they will use in sales. I'm going to go back to my manager. I'm going to go get this approved. They already have the approval authority. Customer success hasn't been given any of that. So many few organizations, even where they are giving the commercial responsibility to customer success, isn't even drawing up the frameworks. Forget the enablement. They're not even putting the frameworks in place for them to have the governance and the ability to execute, or the authority, right? Like we're not giving them anything. So they're scared, and rightfully so. So what we're hearing in the space with like CS not wanting to own it, I do think is primarily fear-based. And I think that goes away when we enable them, when we arm them with the right tools, and you get past that fear.
Absolutely.
By setting them up to succeed. I guarantee you at least 50% of the cohort of people that are anti-sales in CS right now, I guarantee you they can cross over to the other side.
So let me ask you
awesome.
a big question. I mean, there are clearly, I think with a lot of organizations, there are politics at play. Some sales leaders might feel that bringing CS in dilutes the focus. They might signal the wrong signal to other salespeople, but how do you win them over? How do you work around this? How do you get the sales team aligned that there is massive value in that breaking down the silos, all working together? Revenue's much bigger than just new logos. How do you win those kind of pillars of resistance over internally?
Data and stories. It's the only way that I've been ever effective to do that. You have to be able to support everything you do with data, right? These customers that weren't our ICP took 120 days longer than other customers to onboard. They got this many days longer to get to their first milestone. Probability wise, less likely to renew, less likely to grow within 28 months, right? Like you bring them data that supports what you're feeling and what you're thinking, and then back it with a customer story to suggest an entire journey that a true customer has navigated as a result of first sale to next sale, third sale, whatever. You can actually start to help people understand where those gaps are. I was going to say, I think, and then I was going to say, this is why you can't say, I think. The problem is you have a lot of customer success folks that say, I think, I feel, I believe. That's not helpful. It's not helpful. Nobody cares what you think, you feel, or you believe. Instead, here's what the data suggests. This isn't a me thing. This isn't a you thing. This is what the data is signaling to us. We see certain industries we shouldn't sell to, or we don't have the right product functionality to support that. Hey guys, maybe we don't focus as much on that. If our pipeline is 80% of this ICP, hey, guess what? We can anticipate this less growth or this much churn. We have to be able to help them understand that we bring a ton of value to the entire commercial life cycle, and that it doesn't end once the sale is done. We have to continue to sell. We sell value. We sell change. All of those things are sales motions. We're just not selling something that has a monetary exchange.
Absolutely.
Do you think there's another problem on the comp side of it? You know, sales are comped very differently in most organizations to CS. Is there a challenge around that as well, do you think?
Here's what I'm going to say. And I get a lot of feelings. I get a lot of feelings about this. Yeah. I don't feel people do what you pay them to do. It's as simple as that. So incentivize the behavior you want to see in the business. If you want to see them responsible for this, then pay them for that. Now, I am not suggesting, nor do I believe that customer success should have a 70-30 split with a quota. I do think that takes away from the real intention of why we exist post initial sale. So I'm not suggesting it be as extreme or intentionally designed like new sales, where that is their only responsibility. It is not our only responsibility. We have to do a lot of work to earn the right to that conversation to get those commercials across the finish line. So you have to compensate proportionately. And this is why I say you cannot have it like you can't do a 60-40. You can't have it full commission based. Like you can't do this because it's not a 60-40 split in our effort and the work that we have to do to get there. So break it down. What does that look like? I do also think you need to take into consideration, like, really, what is the dynamic of your install base? I see people all the time, well, you have to hit these expansion targets. It's like, well, where is that number coming from? Because only 1% of your book is actually eligible technically for a growth motion. You want to know why? Because your sales team bundled everything together, gave it all away for free. Or, hey, these customers don't actually need this product that you built. I don't know who needs it. It's garbage, right? Like they just put blanket numbers without doing true analysis with the customer success organization. Do not hand a number to me. Design a number with me, because we have the visibility into seeing which companies actually have potential. Don't let the person who's terrified of the commercials be involved in that conversation, because they'll say that nobody can grow and that you can't be raising money and all this stuff. But you find the right person in the leadership role, have an actual conversation. Look, if 80% of your customer base just upsold in Q4, you probably don't have 80% to upsell again in Q1.
It would make sense. The numbers would be on your side.
I'm not even a math person, right? And I just know those numbers don't make sense. You have to be able to understand what the business objectives are, but then lean in with a very strong data-driven perspective to help design those things. And then you compensate along those lines.
Yep. And I've also been a big fan of, you shouldn't just compensate sales just for the initial sale. If that customer is churning in 1 or 2 years because you sold the wrong shit or made promises that could be dealt with, that's on you too. Part of your job should be to create the conditions for that longer term renewal, not just, maybe not an upsell, but at least a renewal. Kristi.
Okay, I go back and forth. Can I play devil's advocate on this one for a second? Because this is another one I love. I don't disagree with the direction of that. The problem is salespeople are coin operated and they are there to make money. The minute you prohibit them from making money, they're not going to stay. The other challenge that you face is that most of those people aren't around long enough to see the end of a 2-year renewal for any customer that they sold. So I agree. So what I would say is I'm more inclined to say they get paid you get 50, we're going to clean numbers, 50% when you close the deal, 50% when your customer hits the first meaningful milestone. And that has to be defined in the business. It has to be something that is measurable, that is easily measurable, because also we don't want to make this difficult for people to track. That, I think, to me feels fair, because if you sell trash ain't going to be successful in adopting your product and getting to that milestone.
Yeah. Well, I actually had one CEO that I worked with. He would even pay out to sales folks who had left on this kind of policy. So like, you left, but you sold the deal. I will still pay you out up to like 2 years afterwards for your commission for doing it the right way. So people could still have some skin in the game that way. So, you can do contracts all kinds of way.
That CEO is an anomaly and should definitely, if you haven't invited him to this podcast, guys, maybe you should have him on and do a little chat about that, because I have yet to meet anybody who is willing and interested in paying somebody after they've left the company.
Yep.
Most payouts are like, you have to be in good standing. It doesn't even matter if you're employed there or not. Like, now you have this subjective language of like good standing. I don't even know what that means.
Yeah.
Well, I think it comes back to what you said. Reward the behavior you want. And if you want them to sell for a long-term renewal, reward on a long-term renewal.
I love it. I love it.
But Kristi, I did want to ask you, come back to like the SKO versus RKO. As I was listening to you, if you take the assumption that the folks who are still doing SKOs and not even inviting sales, they either have a blind spot or they just don't get it. But then if they have that, oh shit, yes, they've listened to you and they've listened to this podcast, of course we should do an RKO. What the hell do I do with it? How can they execute or structure an RKO that will have a meaningful result and not put people in two rooms? And what is there a certain agenda items they should do? Are there certain techniques that they should include in here to make sure it's actually delivering the impact you talked as possible?
So I don't even think that there needs to be a completely different agenda. I think how you execute it is really what matters. I think from an agenda standpoint, you're probably covering a lot of the material that's really pertinent to both sides of the table. I would say, listen, I would be intentional about weird things like where people sit. Every table, I would have assigned seating, and I would make sure that every table has customer success, sales, product, like little representation from all the teams that are physically there, and make sure there's diversification. I would make sure if we do breakouts and workshops, you're doing them with your small group tables that have this diversified group. I'm thinking more along the lines of that. If you have team building events, right? How do you make sure, like I'm more intentional about the cultural design of how you go and execute this, because the content is relevant. Now, I do think that there's a different motion, obviously. So like if you're enabling the new sales team, enablement for post sales looks a little different. I don't think break them out though. Just have whoever is covering that topic speak to both sides. Or better yet, you want to drive alignment, get your sales leader and your CS leader on stage together and co-present on these topics, right? Show unity at the top. I think it's weird little things like that I would be more intentionally focused on than even just how do we diversify an agenda? Keep the agenda, be intentional about the design of execution.
I love that idea of that having the sales leader and the CS leader talking together, because what it also shows is that they're peers. They work together.
Yeah.
And it is, you're right. I think the agenda, maybe there's some tweaking to the agenda,
Sure.
but the most of it, because one of the earlier points was inevitably there's an SKO done, the rest of the business finds out about it, the same agenda, later in a very different setting, it's got a different feel to it. So it's having that alignment and demonstrating to everyone in the room that alignment. And these leaders are both very important. They've both got something to talk about on that same topic.
Yep.
I would also, can I add one more thing for people, just like a little fun idea? If you're doing awards, why don't you award teams? Meaning like if you're giving out an award, give an award for the biggest deal closed, but celebrate who all the people that were sold, right? If revenue, give it to like the group of people, like here's your person who sold it and upsold it and renewed it. Like, I don't know, maybe like some team things. I just feel like culturally there continues to always be this division between these two teams. And until you can make them truly feel like peers, you're always going to have this point of friction between them. Like even how teams talk internally to one another, right? I think the language we use, the positioning, because of the rules of engagement, customer success often does feel like we're being spoken at by our sales counterparts, right? Like, oh, I did this thing. I just need you to go and run this. I just need you to, like, honestly should be stricken from everyone's vocabulary. And I probably say it a million times a day. I just need you to it signals to me that you're my subordinate, right? Even silly language, it breaks down all of these things. So again, going back to your point, Jason, around like the topical and like, how do we go and execute this? You have to do everything possible to unify these people, not these teams. The individuals have to feel a mutual respect for one another's work and their contributions to the bigger outcome for the business.
Yep, I agree with that.
Have you seen organizations where this is done well? It's done the right way?
No, that's why we're here talking about it.
But
I got a dollar in a dream, Jason. Maybe we get somebody to go do this well. You do great.
So you don't know of any. There's no organizations where you're seeing this work the right way.
No, because if they're doing it the right way, they definitely don't need my help.
That's your next service right there, designing this for folks.
You know what? I should.
Good looks like. This is what
I am going to tee this up. So anyone who's listening, fiscal year 2028, you need me. Come. I will come and fix your SKO, your RKOs. No, I think there probably are people that are doing it well. I'm sure that you'll get comments on this podcast that are like, hey, but I do all the things that you guys said. Awesome. You're still the minority.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm happy for you, but you're one in hundreds of thousands of
Yeah,
companies
yeah,
that still continue to get it wrong. And I'm not going to celebrate it until everyone gets it right.
Yeah. I think that's the big thing. I mentioned my other half's company, they do it right, and she's buzzing from that. Kristi, this has been a phenomenal conversation. And again, it's one of those ones that I'm sure there's a part 2 and a part 3. We could just go on. What I want to do is give you our kind of normal bold challenge question. So for our CS audience listening, and particularly for our CS leaders that are listening to this recording, this episode, who might feel sidelined now, they might, all of this, they're going, yeah, I see this. What's the one move that they can do that helps them get this to where it needs to be, or their organization? The one move they can do this quarter to help change this for them, if there is anything.
Advocate for yourselves. I think we play such a passive role in what's happening in the business. We sit back, we accept what others have said. This is how it's going to be. This is how it's done. And we then become the victims of these situations. Our teams are the ones who are suffering. If you are a leader in a business and you're not actively advocating for your involvement in these types of events, even sales enablement dollars throughout the year, your education budget too, go start there. You should be actively advocating for this change every single day until you see it. If you're passively sitting there watching it happen to you, you need to step aside and let somebody else lead.
I love that. Kristi, we said at the beginning, I was very rude and didn't let you give an introduction. I want to give you that space now.
You get used to it.
Because you've spent the last 4 or 5 years heading up at client success as the chief customer officer there, but you've changed recently. So I'd love to give you a bit of space. What are you doing now? Tell us about it.
Anything. No, I'm doing advisory, I'm doing consulting, education enablement, content creation, and coaching. So really anything that impacts the post-sales organizations, post-initial sales organizations, and executing a more modern approach to customer success is really kind of my philosophy here. And whether that happens through helping these organizations understand what they're doing well and where they need to improve, helping their leaders step up and level up into the next stage of their professional careers, whether it's helping these folks by intentionally educating them through workshops, enablement. I'm doing a little bit of everything. I just, honestly, my purpose and what I feel like I have been dipping my toe into the pond for the last couple of years is really helping, level everybody up in our space. I think until we all get better, nothing is going to change. We're going to continue to be seen by the rest of the organization as this additional cost center, this additional nice to have. We have to be meaningful in how we help the business drive itself forward. And so it's really about that. But I'm super excited. This journey's been super cool. It's only like 2 months in and I love it.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
If people want to reach out
Thank
to you,
you.
what's the best way to contact you?
If you want to find me, there's 2 places I will send you. One would be LinkedIn. I'm the only Kristi Faltorusso on LinkedIn. I checked, confirmed. Either that, or you can head over to my website, KristiFaltorusso.com. I've got everything that you need to know, tons of resources there, some free goodies as well. So I'd encourage anyone to just go over there, take advantage of what I offer. I put a ton of content out on my website every day as well.
Kristi, this has been an awesome conversation. This is one of many topics that I think need to change, that is so important. And like you say, there's so much that we're all doing together here. But I've loved this. Thank you again for joining us. I know we'll have you back in a couple of months.
See, like that would be actually really crazy. If I get a 3rd invite, then I know I really am doing something well.
Then you've arrived,
the
man.
3rd one's free. I said, Kristi,
That's awesome.
Thank you so much for joining us.
You.
It's been a really cool conversation.
Thanks for listening to Breakthrough SaaS Growth with the Jasons. If you found today's episode useful, make sure you subscribe, check out our website at breakthroughsaasgrowth.com, and follow us on all the usual social media channels for more insights and updates. And don't forget to share the show with your colleagues who are driving growth in SaaS. See you next time.